How does objective reasonableness apply to police force? Imagine you're walking down the street and a police officer approaches you. You might wonder, how do they decide if their actions are okay? That's where the idea of objective reasonableness comes in. It's a standard used in law to see if a police officer's use of force was appropriate. This standard means that the officer's actions are judged based on what a reasonable officer with similar training and experience would have done in the same situation. It's not about what they knew later or what might have been better in hindsight. Instead, it looks at what the officer saw and understood at that moment. When police decide to use force, they do so under stressful, fast-changing circumstances. Objective reasonableness recognizes that officers often need to make quick choices. They don't have time to analyze every detail or wait for perfect information. Courts will look at what the officer knew at the time, not what could have been known later. The focus is on whether the force used was suitable for the situation. For example, if a suspect is resisting arrest and poses an immediate threat, a reasonable officer might use a certain level of force. But if the force is excessive compared to what's needed, it could be seen as unlawful. Courts also consider the severity of the crime involved. If the suspect committed a serious offense, that might justify more force. But if the suspect is unarmed and not resisting, using deadly force would likely be unreasonable. The law expects officers to use only the amount of force necessary to accomplish their lawful goals. Another key point is that deadly force is only justified if the officer believes there is an imminent threat of death or serious injury. It cannot be used just to stop someone from fleeing or to protect property. The officer must reasonably believe that their life or someone else's life is in danger. This standard also takes into account the total situation. Officers might need to improvise or act quickly without perfect information. Courts will look at all the facts, including how much time the officer had and what they knew at the moment. Knowing your rights means understanding that police have the authority to use force, but only if it's reasonable and necessary. If the force used exceeds what a reasonable officer would do in the same situation, it might be considered excessive and unlawful. This standard helps protect both public safety and individual rights by making sure officers are held accountable for their actions during encounters involving force.